Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Charlton Live, sponsored by the British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom and Bathroom Installation. My name is Louis Mendes. I hope you guys are well. This is the big match preview as we gear up for Saturday's home game with Wycombe Wanderers at the Valley, a first home game in charge for Michael Appleton. So joining me to preview that game, first up, top right, is Tash Everett. How you doing, Tash?
Good evening, Louis. I'm very good, thanks. Don't think I've been on the pod since Holden was sacked, so yeah, not much to talk about, is there?
Yeah, well, was that your personal form of protest that you refused to come on since then?
Yeah, secretly, surprise.
Yeah, we'll ask you about the new manager shortly as well, but we also need to introduce in the bottom of the screen there, Mr. Mark Newbury. How you doing, Mark?
I'm good, mate. I'm just disappointed Tash didn't get a memo to wear the Ecru shirt, just so we could reproduce the Spider-Man meme and point at each other.
Yeah, me and Mark, for those listening on the podcast, me and Mark have turned up wearing the same away shirt from 1998, the Ecru number, which Tash was probably not born at that point, I think, when this kit was worn, which ages Mark terribly. I'm fine, don't worry about it. So yeah, we're wearing the same shirt. Good to see you both. So on today's show, then we will look ahead to that game with Wycombe. We'll have a little bit of a discussion about it. I also want to open up the floor today. This is something that I thought is something that fans and pundits alike speak about a lot. Oh, he doesn't know his best 11. So we're going to try and work out what our best 11 is this evening. So we're going to need your help as well. Those of you joining us in the chat, we're going to need help from everyone to try and work out what our best 11 is. We'll probably get stumped just at the formation, to be fair. But I'm going to try and stick it into a 4-3-3 because that's what Appleton played in his first game. But yeah, we'll have a long conversation about who we think will fit in to certain roles. We will look ahead, of course, to the Wycombe game. We've got James Richins from the Bucks Free Press joining us to tell us a bit about Saturday's visitors. Then we'll look ahead to it from our own point of view as well. Plenty of things to discuss. So, I mean, Tash, you started it there then. Your first show for a while. You've been off on holiday somewhere, I imagine. Like you and Sue always seem to be on holiday somewhere. Tom's on like a 6-week holiday at the moment. Nathan's going on holiday soon. I feel like I'm the only one who's really dedicated to just watching our rubbish football team. But yeah, what have you made of the departure of Dean Holden and obviously the first few weeks of Michael Appleton in charge?
Yeah, sorry, I've been sacking away in Ibiza, but yeah, no. Yeah, when I found out about Holden, I think it wasn't much of a surprise. I think if we'd have given him the home game, I can't remember who we were playing now, but if he'd gone on and lost that, then I think it probably would have made sense, maybe slightly jumping the gun the game before that. But anyway, yeah, I think it was probably harsh. I think for a while, I didn't think that it was probably going to work, though, purely because when they were talking about bringing in a number 2 for Holden this season, I think it was quite clear that he needed a tactician alongside him. I think the man management side of things Holden had down to a T, and the players and everyone around the place seemed to really warm to him. But unfortunately, I think the tactics, he got outclassed a lot of times. Is something that we saw against Bristol Rovers and many games at the beginning of the season. So I think, no disrespect to the people that they did bring up from within and from the academy, but I think it probably required someone coming from outside that had a bit more of experience. So from that side of things, I think he was probably let down budget wise. But yeah, I wish him all the best and everything. But I think as much as I don't want to see him go, because I liked him as a person, liking someone as a person doesn't make them the perfect manager, I suppose. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. But Michael Appleton, yeah, I think with Charlton, unfortunately, over the last couple of years, we've seen change manager every 5-6 months. So I don't see too much point getting too invested in them. I don't think it's a bad appointment. Could we have done better? Probably. But I think given where we are as a club, I think it's probably what I expected. So yeah, wish him all the best, and I hope it pans out well for him, and hopefully he gets a good start at the Valley on Saturday.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed, as you say, it's his first home game in charge this Saturday. I should say hello to everyone who's joining us in the chat. Evening to All Hell Let Loose, and to Bob Byler-Ward. I think Bob was there at Stevenage on Saturday. I saw him shaking hands with Tell. David's in the chat. Michael is saying, evening legends, another week on the training pitch. You know what that means for Saturday? Yeah, it normally means bad news in our case, but hopefully with a new manager will be different. Paul's saying, I won't be able to go on Saturday. Hopefully that proves a good omen. Evening to Liam and to Andrew in the chat as well. David Evans pointing out another manager's gone now in League One. Cheltenham Town have partnered company with, was it Elliot Wade earlier on today? possibly no surprise because they've still yet to score a league goal, Mark. It turns out not when we signed all of their goals, jokingly, we literally signed all of their goals in terms of Alfie May. Right, we'll do the best 11 shortly, but we should just look ahead to this game with Wycombe first of all. It was probably a good start for Mickey Appleton in the second half. Not necessarily the first period against Stevenage on Saturday, Mark, but if he can build up a little bit of momentum at the start of his tenure, like we've seen previous managers do, like all the ones that end up getting sacked anyway, but the likes of Jacko and Adkins started off okay. And as did Dean after about 2-3 games, he went on a good run. It'd be nice if we could start that little cycle again with a good start for Mickey.
Yeah, I mean, it's to be honest, it seemed like he's been there longer, but it's only his second full week, and obviously after the international break, and we did have a few players away, so hopefully we haven't found out if anyone's injured this week on the pitch in training. Alfie will be back, which gives him another quandary on what to do up front. And yeah, you're right. It was a game, the literal game of two halves last week, and you can take, you want to be optimistic and take the positives from the second half and say, right, if he can transfer that through the team into a 90-minute game, it's going to make us harder to beat and make us dangerous attacking. There was some good stuff. There was a lot of the old bad habits, but you can't shake off a bad habit straight away. With any habit in your own personal life which is bad, you can't just change it straight away. It takes some doing. So another full week, and hopefully by now, it's like we're going to do later, he'll have a better idea of what his preferred 11 will be. Obviously, discounting the people like Fraser who are out for a few more weeks, and he hasn't really seen anything of him. He'll have a better idea of the players in training, what they can do. It bodes positively, I should say. It's not all doom and gloom. Okay, we are where we are, but that's to do with the start of the season. We've given him a clean slate virtually to work with. I think the fans, like Tash says, you expect like a bus, another one to come along in another 6 months. But you want to get behind him, you want to be positive, and you want to say, right, let's see if you can make a difference to our team. You are more experienced tactically than Dean was. So we should see that on the pitch, hopefully.
If we are still going to make a dart for the top 6, Tash, it doesn't necessarily, like, we're not a million miles away. The season's not ending yet, but I mean, you don't want to be getting too far behind. I guess is the point we're going to make, and we do have to pick that up quite soon, I think, and the perfect place to start would be against a side like Wycombe, who've obviously enjoyed a good beginning of the campaign themselves.
Yeah, I was looking at the table today and it's very congested in the middle. And even like the teams that you see in the top 6, like 4 out of 6 of them, apart from, Barnsley and Pompey, I wouldn't have said would have been up there. So yeah, as you said, we've still got plenty of time to catch up with them, hopefully. But having said that, if you look at Ipswich, when they got promoted last season, they lost 4 games. And we've already lost 4 games already this season. They did that the whole campaign. So yeah, definitely not got off to a promotion winning start this season, but yeah, there's plenty of room that we can turn that around. I think looking at the results we got against Wycombe in the last couple of years, not had much luck against them. It's better than I thought it was from memory, because I always associate going to Adams Park being a bit miserable. But yeah, I think we've drawn 2, lost 2, 1-1, and the win coming like the first fixture. So yeah, it's been a while since got a win against them, so that'd be nice. But again, they are the sort of teams, I feel myself saying this every time, but they are the sort of teams that if we want to be promoted, we need to be beating them at home, even though they are typically kind of up there or in and around the playoffs. Normally, they're the people that we need to be beating. So yeah, would be nice to get back on track, to be honest. I think the draw at Stevenage, if you'd have said that to me before the beginning of the season that we drew 1-1 there, I'd be like, that's not the best result. Unfortunately, in the context of things, as much as it begrudges me to say that Steve Evans is top of the league, you do have to put that into perspective that they have had quite a good start. So if you put that into context, it's not the worst, but yeah, I think we should definitely be aiming for a win on Saturday, big time.
Yeah. Some of the points have been quite interesting this week, Mark, that I've been picking up on. Now, of course, I think it was sort of this time last week, Charlie Mevans' podcast came out where he was talking about Charlton sort of staying within the salary cost management protocol, effectively FFP for League One, League Two, that is, and how he spoke a little bit about how the young having a lot of young players in your squad, because under a certain age they don't actually count towards that. So their wages don't count towards that salary cap effectively if they've come up through your academy and if they're under a certain age. He was talking about how that's a great benefit to the squad. Now, Mickey Apples on BBC Radio London this week, gave a really good interview, but did reiterate, and it's the second time he said it, because he did say it in his press conference at the end of last week as well, is that Charlton have too many young players. So, I mean, is there a risk? Do you think Mickey's sort of come in and seen the squad and sort of analyse that they're still a bit short of where it needs to be for a playoff place? Because he has said that a couple of times now. He has sort of laid the groundwork for improvements being needed to be made in January.
Well, he's probably said that because he's fed up of having to stick Bluey on the team coach when they're travelling somewhere. I don't know. It's difficult because we need for young players to come through. That's the kind of club we are. If you're going to have, if we had in previous years, experience in certain places, that hasn't always worked either. And then you've got their wages to get rid of. I think it's what he means is that you have to find the right balance. Not like, there's too many youngsters. Ideally, you'd want to blood maybe 2 or 3 into a season to get them. And we've had to blood over the last couple of years, probably 8 or 9 who could have done with another season, playing under 21s or going out on loan. I must admit, I did feel a bit sorry for Daniel Carnu, who's already scored for us in the league a couple of times this season and didn't even make the bench. And I think to myself, with players like that, I think you've got to nurture them. And is it better for him to be in and out of the 21s and the main teams, or was he just going to wait for Chucks to get injured again? But there's positions like the fullback, which he's obviously seen, the young fullbacks we've got, and thought, they've run out of steam. They don't have the knowledge, the nous, as it were, to sort of like kill a game, and they've been caught out. And it's all part of the experience of learning. So ideally, you want an experienced 21-year-old, but the only way you get experience is by playing games. So it's a catch-22 situation with this. I think one of the things, we've always talked about it before, is that you love seeing players come through the academy into the first team, making the bench. And I mean, we interviewed the lads at the Player of the Year last year, and Daniel Carnu's smile was, he was just so happy to be moving up through the ranks and getting in there and getting the chance and being positive and taking it when it came and grabbing it with both hands. But that was fantastic, because one of my highlights of that evening of seeing his positive attitude towards his career and what you want to do. And you think, you don't want to stifle that. And there's no guarantee. Obviously, we couldn't afford it anyway, but you get in 3 or 4 experienced players in positions, they're more likely to be grumbling if they're not playing, or are they just going to be here who's just someone who's just going to take a wage and not really care? I think with the kids, you sometimes get a bit more commitment, a bit more care, because it means something to all of them, but sometimes it means a bit more, especially where you see Asimwe and Corey Anderson, who've played together for, what do they say, about 10 years through the kids and youth, and coming into the first team together, it's been great for them to have someone to share that experience with. And you can see that they're absolutely gutted when we lose. And I see Appleton's point. However, I would always, I'd rather sort of like have the youth there and say, right, let's give them a chance. Because I remember sort of like years ago and seeing people like Sean Newton come into the team and Scott Wagstaff and people like that. And you're thinking, okay, let's show us what you can do. But, they were brought in gradually. We've not had the luxury to do that for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, all hell let loose says didn't. So I've just seen he's changed his picture to me. Didn't Michael Appleton get the job because he was a good manager of younger players? That was certainly something that's talked about. But it is finding that right balance, Tash. If we are to be a club that's serious about promotion, and like I say, for the manager to pick it up a couple of times and go against what Charlie's trying to sell as a benefit for the club, to me suggests there's a bit of a difference there in what the manager thinks would be a achievable with the squad, and it needs addressing in January, as has been said.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Mark. It's nice to see like Anderson in the same way. Obviously, the relationship they built on the pitch, like it's clear to see. It's the same with Lee Byrne when Carnu plays. Like them two together work so well, and you can see they can read each other's game. So in that respect, yes. And like, how many times have we like clung on to academy players that have gone on to do amazing things, like Nick Pope playing the Champions League this week? I was like getting hyped up about that. It was about the biggest joy that Charlton's given me at the moment is youth players. But yeah, I agree. I think as much as I love that, and I love seeing the academy players do well and then come through and get a chance, I do think that, unfortunately, is particularly in League One, I feel like you need that experience. I mean, how many times have we had games this season where, well, the Bristol Rovers and Port Vale games stick out to me, where we've not been able to see out that game and get a point out of it, conceded a late goal, partly because of the inexperience, not blaming it on the academy kids necessarily, but it doesn't help if you're the oldest people in your team, but people like George Dobson and Kirk and people like that are like my age, like 24 or 25. That's not what the sort of people that you need to get out of this division. Like if you think of the people that, the team that got us promoted in 2019 were like, they weren't the oldest side, but they were definitely people that had played the game for a long time. You had people like Darren Pratley in there. Like you need those people in your team. But yeah, going back to the point about like what Appleton's saying, contradicting what Methven says, that doesn't surprise me. But yeah, obviously our fear would be that Methven would come in and see, put these academy kids out with the mind of being like, well, we can put these in the January window, the summer window, and make some money. Whereas obviously we'd like to get the most out of them that we can, considering we've brought them through the ranks. But yeah, I can see, I'd probably side of Appleton more. That I think, as much as I love having academy kids come through and, taking applauders for that, I think if you want to get promoted, you're going to get beaten off the park by teams that have done this game for way longer than they have. And also, I also don't think it's fair that when we were going through that losing stage under Holden, you get all the young kids getting stick on social media and like in the ground. I just think they've been thrown into this situation. It's easy to forget that Asimwe and Anderson weren't in the first team last season. They weren't near it. So yeah, I think it's dangerous to put that much pressure on your academy kids. You look at Carlin Grant when he first came through and how it wrecked his confidence. Thankfully that came back. But yeah, you don't want the same to repeat, to be honest.
No, Richard in the chat is pointing out that it was Alan Hansen that said you don't win anything with kids. Although I think he was proven wrong, but still, we'll see exactly how that plays out. But yeah, it was just an interesting little contradictory couple of comments there that I picked up on. I do like to notice when a manager or an owner are saying different things. We had similar with Garner and Sangard talking about the size of the budget a couple of times, and obviously that ended up with Garner speaking out quite loudly against the ownership, which I'd be shocked if Michael Appleton feels like he's in that situation where he needs to this time, and I'd be surprised if he did. But yeah, it's just something I picked up on, that maybe there's two differing views on how things could go forward. Right, we're going to try this thing then. We've never tried before on Charlton Live, because it's something that we've all said at some point. We've all said he don't know his best 11. We've said it about too many managers going through the years now, because obviously we've had so many. So we're going to try and work it out here on Charlton Live this evening. We're going to need your help as well in the comments. Those of you joining us live in YouTube. And like I said, I have no idea how long this is going to take. So there's every chance that we'll break off halfway through when our guest James joins us to talk about Wycombe, and then we'll come back while we focus a bit more on the Wycombe game. But the main point of confusion would have been the formation that we're going to play, because we have sort of flitted between, I think, mainly 4-3-3, a little bit, was it 4-2-3-1 or vice versa once or twice this season, but mainly between that and 3-5-2. So on Saturday, we went for the 4-3-3 that we played against Stevenage. I've just realised I put May in up top instead of Lieber, and I think I was just practicing changing in there. So that's how we started against Stevenage over the weekend. So the question is, if we were to play a 4-3-3 first of all, we need to find out what our best team is. So we're probably going to get stuck on this for the entire time we've got. But goalkeepers, you got benefits and obviously you've got pros and cons for both of our goalkeepers. Mark, if you were Mickey Apples going into obviously, you'd have to bulk up a bit in terms of your arms. But if you were Mickey Apples going into Saturday's home game, what would be your decision making for the goalkeeper position on Saturday? And those of you in the chat, give us your reasons why and who you choose.
Well, I actually have, I've got twin boys, and I've got this coin, and it's got one name on one side and one name on the other. So that if they're arguing about who gets to do what, I would flip it and they go by whatever comes down. Now, that's what he could get for Isted and Ashley. Again, you can pros and cons for both of them. After watching Isted's reaction to the goal on Saturday, where he decided just waving a leg casually as the ball shot past him, I thought I would go with Ashley again, because I just think to myself, his shot stopping is very good. His distribution is not good, and his kicking needs improving. But the thing about goalkeepers, they just need coaching 100% of the time. They don't reach their peak until late 20s, normally 30s. There are a few younger keepers now who are exceptional, but I think if you watched last night's Champions League, Man United's paid a lot of money for their guy who just fell over the ball, and thinking, and he's playing in a Premiership tonight for Champions League. So, look, if you push me, I think Ash. I probably haven't seen enough of Isted to come down on his side, if I'm honest. Only like what we've seen him last season, where he single-handedly tried to keep out Sheffield Wednesday, and but I understand why he's been given a chance now. However, I think if you push me to put one in, I'm going A and B. It's just for. But I'm not going to argue with anyone who says, "Oh, you got to put Isted in." It's not one of those ones. It's not a hill I'm willing to die on, but I would go with Ash.
Right. So in the chat, Michael's saying Ashley back in guard. Trust him as a shot stopper. Joseph is voting for Ashley. Luke is voting for Isted. Would just about have Isted at the moment, as he doesn't spill as much into our penalty box. Although that could be due to the fact that, as Chris says, has Isted actually made a save yet? Ashley Maynard Brewer back pleased, as I felt Isted should have attempted to save the goal at the weekend. David saying Ashley. Andrew would like to see Ashley. Dudley would like to see Ashley as well. David, Ashley. All hell let loose is saying Zorro, which is Ashley as well. So there we go. I mean, obviously there's chat about the formation. So this is part of the problem we've got. I mean, I'm not ever convinced that 4-3-3 is our best formation. It has been at times, but when we've got the potential strike force we've got, I feel like we should have two more central strikers. Tash, if I were to put you on a spot, then the two goalkeepers, unless you're going to throw like a rogue one in, like one of the youth ones or anything like that, or get McGilvray back or something mad.
Yeah, bring up the under-21s. Now, I'm like Mark. Honestly, I don't think I can really sway it either way. No one's either pulling me either way. But obviously, I think when Maynard Brewer got dropped, it was slightly harsh, although I did agree with it at the time, purely because I felt like he needed to be taken out of the spotlight, because I think he made errors. Well, as someone pointed out, Spitwit, after making the save, 2 carbon copies in the 2-10 games. So he needed to be dropped, probably, even though, you could argue it was harsh. But again, I have an issue that I haven't really seen Isted either since he's come in. The clip that Stevenage, I think Stevenage posted it from behind the goal, wasn't the most flattering angle of their opener at the weekend. I think if we'd have gone on to lose that game, you could argue that, if Isted he's not tried enough to stop that shot and it's caused us to lose the game, then yeah, you'd have a good argument for him being dropped. Having said that, I do also like Ashley Maynard Brewer, and I thought he did really well for us back in the last season. So it's difficult. But just making things easy for this 11, I'll say Maynard Brewer come back in outside of Mark.
Yeah, that's good. So that's who I put on the screen. Just a couple more people had their comments. Andrew said Ashley's got the potential to be a fantastic goalie, great shot stopper. Okay, the distribution is not great, but then neither was Dino's. Luke saying he did forget Isted's Stevie Wonder impression on the front post against Stevenage. As Alex has pointed out, I mean, Jones probably could have done better to stop it. As I mentioned on Saturday, it looked like he was sort of all his weight was going one way, and then with Jamie Reid, wasn't it, a striker? He cut inside him and went the other way. But Paul, saying about the distribution, said it's becoming increasingly important, but keeping clean sheets or the score down is what it's about. It's his bread and butter to make saves. I mean, that's something that's definitely been picked up a lot by Benji on this show, Mark. He doesn't rate Ashley's distribution at all, but I mean, how important is that? And again, I don't know what Eisted's distribution is yet because we haven't seen enough of him, but how important is distribution in the modern game, especially the way we were playing under a Ben Garner, where we were massively possession-based? Can you allow at our level for a goalkeeper who's not the best with his feet? I mean, probably at League One level you can.
Yeah, because the idea is you want the guy to stop the ball going in the net. I mean, there's all this follow the trend. Oh, we want a keeper who can play as a sweeper, centre-back, come out and dribble past 12 people before making... No, that works for certain teams in certain ways. Give me a guy who stops the ball from going in. I don't care whether it's his face, his chest, his leg, his knee, or whatever. That's what I want. If a ball comes to him, get rid of it. I mean, when you see certain teams trying to play it out from the back and the pressure which is put onto them, of course it's going to happen. Mistakes are going to be made and it's going to be highlighted. So I'd rather he just put his size 12 through it and launched it up front. Okay, it's going to come back, but we'll probably lose a lot less goals than trying to play out and play across and play it back and play across. And sooner or later, it's going to bite you on the backside. So, give me a goalkeeper who can do the job he's been paid for. That's what I want. Catch crosses, deal with it, organise free kicks, stop the ball from going in. That's the bottom line. What he does with it after that, distribution, again, is what I'm saying about goalkeepers need to be coached. They need to be getting personal coaching from a goalkeeper coach who knows what they're doing. This is why they're out there, half hour before everyone else, warming up, getting themselves ready, game ready, mentally ready to go. And it always strikes me as strange where they say, well, but my goalkeeper can't do this. We've had some real rubbish goalkeepers over the years. I mean, it's just, but, if anyone wants, if you say Thuram, you can say Nicky Weaver, people like that. But, and you look at the best, everyone always says about Dino's kicking, but okay, he had a bit of a left shank on it, but he was an amazing goalkeeper for shot stops, for everything, commanding, agile. That's what I wanted. I didn't care if he put it out of, 1 in every 10. I cared that he stopped some goals going in, which he did. So the distribution is an easy stick to beat Ashley with, but it can be coached, it can be corrected, it can be improved. And that's what you want from a player.
Excellent stuff. Right, we're nearly half an hour into the show and at least 10 minutes into our best 11, and we've got one position sorted so far. I did have a nasty feeling this was going to happen. Just quickly before we go to the break, let's do left back. So I have written down pretty much everyone who can fit in every position, and I think I've pretty much only got Teo Aiden for left back, maybe Terrell Thomas. I mean, Tash, is there anyone else you could see fitting in at left back for our best 11?
No, Eden would be my go-to. Absolutely. I think he's been brilliant at left back this season. I can't think of anyone else that would drop there personally.
Excellent stuff. Well, that works quite nicely, and we'll just tick right back off as well then. So James Abankwah played there on Saturday, Mark, out of position. We do have other options. It's an interesting one, really, because I've put a Simway or Tene Watson. So we're slightly hamstrung here by the fact that one of them's never played for us, so we don't know if he's any good. But would the temptation there to be to put the more experienced League One right back in that position, or play Abankwah out of position again where he really struggled on Saturday?
No, I don't want to play a square peg into a round hole. I'm sorry for the same way. I would put Watson in. I'd put, he's a specialist in that position. That's what you need. Oh, yes, we haven't seen him, but I'm thinking I'd rather play someone who knows what that role is. And Asimwe hasn't done anything to make me go, oh, you've got to drop him. There's been mistakes. It's his youth, it's the age, but that's the experience alongside him needs to be better. But I would put Watson in. I really would. And that's because I think he'd have a specialist right back in that position.
Excellent stuff. Right, we will come back to our best 11 after the advert break. Should just say hello to Jonathan West from Charlton Upbeats, who's joined us in the chat. I hope you're well. Jonathan, good to see you. Luke is asking about our shirt, the Ecru number. Says he's ordered one himself. I think I've seen someone sort of like remaking them online. It'd be interesting to see what they how they come out. This is an original I bought off eBay a few years ago as well. So, right, we will come back to our best 11 shortly. We'll have our break and then we'll turn our attention to Wycombe because our guest is going to join us and tell us all about Matt Bloomfield's side in a few moments' time. Thinking about a new kitchen or bathroom? Find professional, independent local installers with free home surveys, itemised quotes and protected payments, trading standards approved contracts, and workmanship warranties. The British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom, Bathroom Installations accredits installers to ensure they are police checked, fully insured, and experienced. Take the risk out of home improvement. Visit bikbbi.org.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the River. See you soon.
Right, welcome back to Charlton Live. This is the big match preview. Before the break there, we've started to make a dent on our Charlton Best 11, which is causing a lot of debate, and we haven't actually got to any of the positions with more than 2 players in yet, so centre-half is going to be a fun one next. But we have got a game on Saturday. This is the big match preview. I wanted to look ahead to Wycombe's trip to the Valley, so delighted to say now that we're joined by James Richins, who writes about the Chairboys for the Bucks Free Press. James, great to see you. How are you, my friend?
Oh, it's great to see you too, Louis. Hope you're doing okay. And I'm doing very well, thank you. Very well indeed. And hello to Tash and Mark as well. It's lovely to meet you guys.
Excellent stuff. Thanks so much for coming to join us on the show finally. You were lined up for last year. We had to cancel the show late, if I remember rightly. But yeah, an absolute pleasure to have you on. Obviously, met you over the last few years covering games for the Chairboys. Tell us about their start to the season. It feels like they're on a bit of a decent run now.
Very much so. At the start of the season, right at the start of the league season, it was disastrous. 2 defeats on the bounce, no goals scored, 6 goals conceded, I should say. And in the opening game against Exeter, Wycombe were 2-0 down inside the first 5 minutes, and one of those goals was scored after 24 seconds. So it was a dreadful start to the season, but fair play to Matt Bloomfield. He really has picked it up, and collectively, out of the 10 games they've played this season, all competitions, they've won 6 of them, and they've unbeaten their last 3 without conceding a goal, if you include the Papa John's game on Tuesday night. So they've really have improved Wycombe after what was a shaky start to the season.
Yeah, normally on the little ticker you see going down the bottom of the screen, I put in stats and that, and obviously I write the score of the last match, and I did have the last league match until I saw who they beat on Tuesday night in the Papa John's, so I've changed it to the fact they beat Palace, even if it is the under-21s. Talk to us about Matt Bloomfield, the manager. Obviously massive snake boots to fill after Gareth Ainsworth left and took the hacker to QPR with him. How has he settled into the role over the last 10 months or so, I guess, by now?
Yeah, it's been a real transitional period for Wycombe. Gareth Ainsworth had been there for 10.5 years, so we all knew what was expected of Gareth Ainsworth, especially in the last 5 or 6 years in which he took Wycombe up twice, and then in a playoff final, which unfortunately lost to Sunderland in 2022. So everyone kind of knew what was expected. Then his move to QPR sort of came out the blue, but it seemed to be the right move for him. Matt Bloomfield, in a way, was the only real candidate. We all know that he's an absolute legend at the club. He had 20 years there, or just under 20 years as a player. He knows the fabric of the club, and if there was ever going to be one man to take over from Gareth Ainsworth, who too had spent well over a decade at Wycombe, it was going to be Matt Bloomfield. And it's still very much fair to say he's in the infancy of his career still, because when he was at Colchester, he only took that job, I think, a year ago, the end of this month. And at the back end of last season, it was a real shaky period, I think it's fair to say. When Gareth left, Wycombe had just won their 5th game in a row in League One, which they'd never done before in any League One season that they've been in. So when Bloomfield took over, it was a bit shaky. 1 win here, then a draw, then a loss. It was just very inconsistent. And they ended the season on a bit of a whimper. drew Portsmouth on the final day, and then before that they had 2 back-to-back home defeats. So it was a bit of a disappointing end. But he's always said that he knows what his ideas are. He knows what his philosophy is. It's just going to take time. And I know it's very early days in the season, but we're starting to really see what he wants to do. He wants to play the ball on the ground. He has experimented with a few different formations. He primarily goes with 1 up top, but against Blackpool last weekend in the league, he opted to go with 3 up top, and it worked. Whereas Wycombe really didn't need to get out of third gear to defeat the Tangerines. So to take over from Gareth Ainsworth, it was only going to be Matt Bloomfield, and he's slowly but surely now starting to show everyone his philosophy.
So when Wycombe were in the Championship 2020-21, I mean, a lot of people said it's the smallest club ever to reach that level, but by the fact that they did get there, that sort of readjusted expectation levels a little bit. I mean, is it fair to say that, a side that finished 9th last season, got to the playoffs the year before, that is now the expectation for even what is still, historically a very small club at this level, that playoffs are sort of what the Adams Park crowd has come to expect?
Yeah, I agree in a way. I mean, Wycombe have only been in the Football League since 1993, 94, I believe. So around 30 years. So, and it's still incredible to think they were in the Championship a couple of years ago. It's still mind-boggling. And of course, when you do so well, there is an expectancy in that. Now, Wycombe got promoted into League One in 2018. They just avoided relegation 2019, promotion 2020. Unfortunately relegated, in my opinion, in 2021, and then lose a playoff final in 2022. So that's 4 to 5 years of consistency. So, of course, there is a level of expectancy now, because that's a significant period of time. It's not a flash in the pan where you have one promotion and then you somewhat falter. Wycombe are very much a club that want to be back in the Championship. And in a way, it was a very unfortunate season. Their only year in the second tier was played behind closed doors due to the pandemic. So no fans, other than a selected few during the Christmas period where they were allowed in, were able to see their team in the Championship. So the owners, the Couigs, they definitely want Championship football again. Matt Bloomfield wants to get in and around the playoffs. And I think it's fair to say 9th, considering what it has been in the last few seasons, 9th place last season for Wycombe was still their 5th highest finish ever in their history. And I think that sometimes gets forgotten about because the season did end on a bit of a whimper. So playoffs is very much the aim, and Wycombe are really trying to make strides to become a Championship club, but not just a Championship club for 1 or 2 seasons. They really want to be part of the furniture in the second tier.
So, James, one of the players that's been with you since you've been back in League One is Brandon Hanlon, one of our old academy products. What do you make of him, and how's he got on in the 2 years that he's been with you guys?
I think he's done very well. He joined us from Bristol Rovers in 2021, the year that Wycombe went down into the Championship, and he's been somewhat good. He really has been. I personally believe he's more of a winger than a striker, in my opinion. Matt Bloomfield did say that if he gets more goals to his game, he will be one of the best players in the league, because we can see his qualities. He runs at the defence. He doesn't give anyone a moment's peace. He's a real handful. But in the last year or so, he has struggled with injuries. He suffered a hernia injury last season, so he missed a significant period of the season. There have been times where he's been in and out of form, maybe due to the injury, but he's really come back strong this season, and he's already got a couple of goals, one being against Blackpool last weekend. So the fans do like him. Obviously, he was very close to leaving in the summer, with Wrexham being the favourites to sign him. And I guess when a side like Wrexham now, with their profile and the money they could offer in League Two, obviously it's going to turn a few heads. And there was a very strong possibility he was going to go. He was actually excluded from the League Cup defeat to Sutton because it looked like the move was going to happen. It fell through, and he's very much a Wycombe player. And he was at the training ground today, getting involved, getting stuck in. So it's a real good thing that he's at Wycombe still, because he has a lot to offer. Comes in on the right-hand side. He's got a very good shot on him, and he loves to dribble. He loves to get around defenders. So it's good to see that he's still here with us.
James, would you say, obviously we lost Ipswich, Plymouth and Sheffield Wednesday last year, that this league is, for want of a word, easier this season? So it gives you more optimism that we, i.e. you and us, would do better in it?
Cool, that's a good question, that is. It's difficult to say. It really is, because let's be real. If you look at a side like Stevenage, who Charlton played last week, I doubt any of us would have expected the start they would have had, considering that Steve Evans has got somewhat of an iffy record in League One. And at the same time, I don't think that we would have seen Reading struggle, albeit with the points deductions so far this season. So I wouldn't say necessarily it's going to be easier, because I think every League One season is always going to be difficult. I think Bolton are a side that look very good. I think Oxford are going to look really good under Liam Manning, because he nearly got promoted with MK a couple of years ago until they lost to Wycombe in the playoffs. So I think it's going to be a really, really challenging season. I mean, on the opening day against Exeter, if you were to have said that Wycombe would have been 2-0 down inside the first 5 minutes of the season, everyone would have thought you're having a laugh. But it did, and Exeter have looked really good as well. So it's going to be hard for any team, really. And I think it's still very, very, it's too early to say, really. I think when it gets to around Christmas time, January, February, that's when we start to really, really look and think, okay, well, these are the teams that are pushing for promotion. These teams had a good start, but they've somewhat fallen off, and maybe they're not going to be able to catch up. So there are some very, very good teams in this league. I mean, Peterborough, they've got a point to prove after the way they capitulated last season. Barnsley want to get out of the division after being so close to getting out of it last season. I've already mentioned Oxford, Charlton, yourself. I grew up with Charlton being a Premier League side, so the fact you're in League One is still mind-boggling to me in that sense.
Yeah,
so,
and us as well, to be honest, mate. Yeah.
So it's going to be a really, really tough season, that's for sure, for anyone, I think.
Excellent. Yeah, well, we've certainly made it tough so far. James, it's been brilliant to have you on. Thank you for bringing your expertise about Wycombe Wanderers and League One. You're bottling going to the game on Saturday. You got a terrible excuse because you're getting married. So congratulations from all of us at Charlton Live. Thanks for your time this evening, and I'm sure I'll see you at the reverse fixture.
Very much so. Thank you so much for your kind words, Louis. And I hope you enjoy the game. I'll be keeping an eye on the score, but not at the altar. Otherwise, I think I'll get divorced before the wedding even starts. So have a good evening, guys. And it's lovely to meet you all. Cheers.
Cheers, there we go. That's James Richins there from the Bucks Free Press, who joined us on Charlton Live this evening to give us a lowdown on Wycombe Wanderers. And yeah, that was so massive congratulations to him on Saturday. He's bottling going to the game because he's getting married. Right. Shall we dive back into our best 11? Because I was really enjoying that, and we've only got 3 positions sorted so far. We will look a bit ahead to the game with Wycombe from our point of view as well later on in the show. We haven't got anything from the gaffer yet. Mickey Apples is doing his presser tomorrow, frustratingly, because I think that's going to be the case going forward as well. So I'll start to ask him more questions about the next opponents on a Saturday, which he'll love, because managers don't like that. Anyway, right, so we've got the easy ones out of the way, right, in our best 11. We've got the goalkeeper, Maynard Brewer. Eden at left back sort of picks himself. Tanai Watson over Nathan Asimwe. I think we've gone for experience over youth there, which I think is mainly because Nathan is still young. You know, I think he's got all of that potential that we've seen so far from him. But yeah, there was a decision to be made there. This is going to be the tough one, Tash. Centre half, all right? So assuming we're playing a back 2, like as in a back 4 with 2 centre backs rather than a back 3 with 3 centre halves. So we've got to go for. So on Saturday we started with Jones and Hector. Now obviously Hector has had his moments at times. Jones, a few people felt could have done better for the goal on Saturday. So they're the 2 with the shirt at the moment on the screen. But also in that back line, we could have the likes of Lucas Ness, Deji Aleraway, Terrell Thomas, and James Abankwah. I don't think I've missed anyone off there, but if I've missed anyone glaring, let me know. So, Tash, I mean, you have to pick 2 there, and bear in mind that particular position has been a real weak point for us over the last few seasons. So, pick wisely, because it's an area of the field that we have to get better in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jones is. Personally, I think he's done well from what I've seen of him. I haven't seen him really put a foot wrong. Obviously, arguably the goal at Stevenage, yeah, could have covered. I said a bit better, but from what I've seen of him, I've been quite impressed. Unfortunately, Hector had the error where he let his man turn him and go in on goal and score. Remember that very vividly in my head still, so it might sway my decision slightly. But the one that stands out to me that isn't in there at the moment is Lucas Ness. I was quite surprised that he isn't in there anyway. I think he hasn't done anything to merit him being dropped. But it's difficult. I feel like I do. I sound like I'm really slating Hector. I do rate him. It's just that one mistake. I think possibly drop Hector for Ness. Maybe is probably what I'd go for.
That's certainly an option that some people have gone for. I mean, this is going to be hard to get an actual consensus here because there's quite a few different points being made in the chat. I mean, all hell let loose is saying Jones and Ness. Luke saying our centre back options are worse than I thought. Paul saying Jones and Hector. David saying Ness and Hector for me. Luke saying Ness has been awful recently. So, I mean, Mark,
right?
Which way would you go on it before I add my own opinion? Which I'm not entirely sure I know which way I'd go at this stage either.
Well, what I've seen of Jones, I've liked commanding. This is going to sound strange because he's only just played one game for us, and that was at right back. I'd play a Banquois there. For the simple fact, one, that's his position. He's a centre half. Two, we've got him on loan from an Italian side who's signed him. Now, all we all know about Italian football is that it's very well drilled defensively. Some people find it quite dull, Italian football, but it's very well drilled. So he'll know his role. So I would probably go with him there. It's going to sound strange. I like Terrell Thomas. Hector, he's comfortable now, and I don't like that. I think when he came in on loan and he looked like he had a point to prove, he was everywhere, and we were like, "Wow, this guy!" And then he made a ricket, and then another ricket, and then you're like, oh, "You're not expecting that from someone." So is he too comfortable in that position? Ness, I like. I think he came in, did a job for us. Again, he was, like I said earlier, he's one of those players. Previous years, he would have been sort of like had a couple more years in the reserves and the under 21s, getting a bit more experience with it's a horrible phrase, man's football, out on loan somewhere. So I know Abenk was young as well, but I think with his pedigree and his experience of being in Italy and being coached defensively, I think he would probably be a good fit alongside Jones. Because you've got to make us hard to beat at the back, but they're athletic. He's athletic at Benquo, and I like that. He looks versatile and comfortable on the ball, which again comes from his Italian coaching. So they'll probably split, and we'll put everyone in the comments can see a lot of people go for Hector, but I would go with Benquo and Jones.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? So I'm sort of on the side of those who've been a bit disappointed by Michael Hector at times last season as well. There were mistakes that you'd expect a player of his experience not to make. But then when you're looking at those options, so yeah, Jones for me, I think I feel like Jones has been almost unanimous. I think other than maybe Saturday, where, like I say, he was unbalanced, he was going one way, the Reed took the ball past him going the other. I don't feel like he's been part of any of the absolute howlers yet. I'm sure if we look back at things there, maybe positionally stuff, he would have liked to have done differently. But it feels like he's probably the only one that was saying that we'll keep indefinitely so far. I think most people have said Hector. There were, like I say, a few mistakes last season. Obviously had a glaring one this season. He wasn't great away at Newport. He played part in a poor defence away at Newport as well in the cup as well. So I can see why he might be dropped. But then when you look at the other options, so Banquo we don't know anything about at this stage. Played out of position and had a tough day of it on Saturday. Terrell Thomas, I feel like there's probably a reason he doesn't get picked as often. I think seems to have been okay at times this season when he's come in, but maybe not. Deji, I don't think he's quite ready yet. I thought he looked a bit. He had a really good time of it on loan at Bromley last season, and then Lucas Ness, end of last season looked really strong, but as you'd sometimes expect with a younger player, some of that inexperience showing at times this season, and looks a little bit off the pace. So, yeah, it does feel like I put it on Twitter saying we were going to go for our best 11, and Neil said maybe is if you approach it from a least worst 11 angle at this moment in time, and I feel like that's kind of where I'm landed with the second centre half. And can I put Hector in there from my point of view? Least worst at this stage, maybe, and with potential to be better than he is because he does have that experience. That's where I think I'm going to stay. So, judging by the comments, David saying we'll have Jones before a Banquer. George is saying Jones and a Banquer. Harry's saying Jones has been strong. Luke is probably saying what I'm sort of leaning towards. I'm not having a Banquo in our strongest team until I've seen more of him. So obviously disagreeing with what Mark said, and Mark has been accused by Andrew of only wanting a Banquo place in the side because Mark's a chef, and obviously a Banquo's been out in Italy, so he's eating a real pizza. He knows what it's going. So Luke's saying Hector gets the vote. Come on, Louis, let's get into that midfield. So we've only got 9 minutes left to actually preview the game from a Charlton point of view. So I wonder if maybe we can save the rest of this best 11 for Sunday if everyone's up for that, because this has been a lot more enjoyable than I thought. And actually, we've got some real headaches in the rest of this team. So if you think about it, if we are to play a 4-3-3, there's decisions to be made. If it's the striker like May or Lee Byrne, does that mean that one of them doesn't play, or do you push Lee Byrne out wide with May up top? We haven't even mentioned Anike. And if we're talking about strongest 11, if we're not talking about fittest 11, if we're talking about strongest 11, then Anike's certainly got a shout at getting in there as well. Loads of conversations to have. Is Chem Campbell his best on the left side of a midfield here, where he was a little bit out of the game on Saturday? Obviously with the likes of Fraser and Kamara still coming back into that midfield as well. There's loads to discuss on Sunday. So we'll come back to that best 11. But yeah, we've started off then with a goalkeeper in Ashley Maynard-Brewer and a back four of Eden, Jones, Hector and Tanae Watson. We've literally got someone in our best 11 none of us have ever seen play for Charlton. That's going to be exciting to look ahead to. But we'll come back to that on Sunday as we look ahead to the game with Wycombe coming up on Saturday. Tash, we've spoken about the importance of getting off to a good start. The importance of sort of knowing how to play a game against a Wycombe side who traditionally have been quite physical. I can't remember if James mentioned about. They've got one of my favourite players in the league in Gareth McCleary. Partly biased because I did see him come up through the ranks with Bromley. He'd been around the non-league circuit and signed for Bromley, scored a couple of good goals when he was a real young man. But he's got that experience to go with it, Premier League experience now as well. But he's a flair player, but overall they're known perhaps for their physicality, and that's not what we dealt with on Saturday. So I imagine Michael would have been, he's a man who loves to hit the gym. I imagine he's had the boys in there for extra sessions this week.
Yeah, didn't he say in his post-match he's increased the intensity of the training sessions and probably get them working on their fitness and physicality? So I don't know if that would have been fixed by Saturday, but hopefully in the future when we do come up against physical sides again, because
if we come out and all the lads are absolutely hench like Michael Appleton, that would be a sight to behold. That would send a real message to the opposition, wouldn't it?
Yeah, George Dobson in the Montclair shirt. No one's going to mess with him in midfield. But that would be the dream. But yeah, I don't know. I think as you said, we don't do very well against physical sides. I think that's been the way for such a long time now. I thought I said that for so long. But yeah, as Jones was saying, Wycombe could be different than what they were like under Gareth Ainsworth. So it'd be interesting to see whether that's changed at all. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like hopefully being at home will help as well. You'd like to think the Appleton's first game in charge. But yeah, as I say, I feel like Wycombe, we never seem to be able to break them down well, even when we are at home. So hopefully Appleton's got them with some big guns coming out. We'll be able to deal with the physicality.
Yeah, all hell let loose saying, aren't you missing Kamara in midfield? So that formation I showed online was the team against Stevenage. So I haven't picked anyone in particular yet. We haven't had the debate about the midfield yet, but they will come up. How big a role can you see Chuks Anike playing on Saturday, Mark? Now he was massive for Charlton when he came on against Stevenage last weekend. We can't. We have to come to we're in the situation where we can't risk him. So if we can hold him for 25 minutes, that's better than not having him at all. So we just got to hope we're still in the game, I guess, at that point, and then we can throw him on as not only a battering ram, but he has got such a good touch on him as well, and a goal scoring nous that if he can refine that as well, he could be a real difference for us on Saturday.
Well, that's it. He's always been a good weapon to have in your arsenal. That you're going to put him on with 25 minutes, 20 half hour to go, and hope that he doesn't get injured. Going up against a tiring defence who could have been pushed around. He gives him, like you say, his control is good and good touch. He's a handy weapon to have on a bench. He's not going to start. I'd be tempted, if you're going 3 up front, I'd go Leeburn, obviously, for his physicality. I think you put Corey on one side and you put May on the right and let him flit around as a bit. We've talked about before about Alfie May being a pest. And I think if Leeburn's occupying the centre halves with his size and his build, let May pop up and be that box, one you're not watching until he's put the ball in the back of the net. So, and then if we are 1 down or it's a draw, and then you're bringing on Chucks, again, it's another weapon you can put on. If you have to go a bit more direct, he can hold the ball up. So, no, it is good to have on the bench. Like I said, I still think there's a space. You can put Kanu on the bench as well, again, because I think you have to have a few more strings on your bow than just to lump it up to Chucks. So, I thought we were overloaded defensively in his first game, but I can understand why, because he's seen our previous games and thinking, if I need to hold on at the back, I will do. I like Chucks. We all know the issues with him. And I think that's the thing about Chucks. We want him to do well. You don't want him. People aren't going, oh, God. But they want him to do well. But do I think he'll do 5 games in a row? Probably not.
No, unfortunately. Daniel's just joined the chat saying we definitely need to play 4-4-2. May and Leeburn up top. 4-3-3 just doesn't work, leaves May isolated. We saw that on Saturday with Leeburn, because that was going to be my next point. I mean, Mark's talking about having that physicality, getting Leeburn in the mix. But if we do play a 4-3-3, like Leeburn out wide kind of worked against Fleetwood, albeit against Fleetwood, for 20 minutes or so. Like, can we get that into the side? And maybe that would mean taking someone like Tyrese Campbell out the side, who didn't have a great day on Saturday, but I think is a real asset to us sort of going forward. Like, he won't be dropping Blackett Taylor. So assuming May has recovered from his concussion, I mean, how would you sort of mould that front line, Tash? It does come, every question comes back to what's our strongest 11 and also the formation as well, I guess. But I mean, would you have a preference for a game on Saturday?
Yeah, I agree with you that when Leeburn came on at Fleetwood, I mean, it just changed the game completely, didn't it? Most because it's Miles Leeburn, but also, yeah, that formation seems to work really well from us. And from, the first half, it was absolutely dire. When he came on, it really, really switched it up. But in just having his physicality out on the wing did still work. However, my only issue with having Leeburn on the wing and May still as in the centre is if we're going to insist on playing balls in from the wings and trying to get it in that way, or trying to play long ball and trying to hoof it up to Alfie May, it doesn't work. So I always prefer having if we're going to play like that, I'd much prefer having a taller striker like Miles Leeburn in the middle or an EK. Obviously, yeah, as you guys said, he's not going to start, unfortunately. But yeah, Leeburn in that position. But I would personally switch it around. I don't know how much Alfie May's played on the wing, but I would have Leeburn in the middle and Alfie May out on the wing. I agree with Mark with the respect of him being able to run around and cause a nuisance, maybe drift out of his position if he needed to, and have Leeburn in the centre. That's what I'd do.
Excellent stuff. Right, we've nearly run out of time on this week's Big Match Preview. Just wanted to bring to your attention on Saturday, outside the game, there'll be a bucket collection for Young Lives versus Cancer in memory of Ben Jay, obviously the Charlton fan who we lost very sadly a couple of years back now, or just over a year ago. So if you can, fans are encouraged to bring cash, but you can text to donate as well. The details are all online, so if you want to get hold of that, make sure you do. It'll mean a lot to Ben's family, who obviously still go to games as well. Right, we have come to the end of this week's show. So as I said, we'll pick up the best 11 again, either Sunday or possibly on next Thursday as well. Lucas is just Lucas is our Brazilian friend who bought me a shirt a couple of weeks ago. He said the midfield needs 4 men instead of 3. And then you want to see Corey and Leeburn on the attack. Excellent stuff. Right. Thanks to everyone who's joined us in the chat this week, and for your suggestions for our best 11. Like I say, we'll pick that up again later on. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for everyone who's listened back on the podcast as well. Massive thanks to James from the Bucks Free Press, who joined us earlier on today. And also a big thanks to Tash and Mark. Good to speak to the pair of you as always.
You're welcome, mate.
Cheers, Louis. Cheers, guys.
Good to see you guys. So I'm Louis Mendes. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again on Sunday to look back at the Wycombe game. But I just want to say thank you to listening to Charlton Live, sponsored by the British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom and Bathroom Installation. We'll see you again over the weekend.